Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about something extremely important and very dear to my heart, education. And we are looking at remedials of BECE and generally at which point do we terminate schooling for our young ones in this country. This is a subject which I hope the producers will actually find a slot during the week so we continue until probably a month, because I don't think an hour will be enough to exhaust this. Folks, in 3 years, about 500,000 youth were left aside because they couldn't make it through BECE. Over 500,000. By any standards, that's a security threat to any country. However, because of the way our education system is set up, they failed, so they dropped along the line and we moved on. In any institution in any country, without doing any statistics, you can go through the papers and read those who are committing crimes. They are not in school in Achimota, they are not in Prempeh College, they are not in Accra Academy. They must have dropping out of school one way or the other. So the chances of them becoming poor is higher. The fact that they are poor, they have idle, and the devil finds work for idle hands. Whether we like it or not, we need to fix education. So today I am talking to gurus in education. To my immediate left is Mr. Michael, and so I was a former Director General of Ghana Education Service. So, I mean, it doesn't get higher than that. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And then to my extreme left is my own senior brother, Anis Hafa, who's an educationist and a passionate one. He's a passionate educationist. Anis, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michael, I want to start with you. There's this big misconception that once you fail BCE, no, you can't write your remedials and then that's it. And we in the media always jump up and down, oh, how can you do that? How can you do that? Well, what is the true story?
Thank you very much. When the BECE was introduced, especially with the computer selection system introduced, we were trying to find a way of making sure that as many candidates as possible will go into the secondary school, but of course we didn't have enough vacancies, so we depended mostly on the criteria which tried to cut off. So it didn't mean that those who could not make it to the secondary school have failed, but because of lack of space. So among the regulations that were put up was that when you fail and you want to resit, you go back and register with your school, your former school, because the results of the BECE is based on the rating exam and continuous assessment. So in order to make sure that we will trust, or the WAEC will trust the continuous assessment, you go back to your school, register for the exam, and then they will use your old continuous assessment marks and then submit it to WAEC, and then your rating exam will be added, and then you'll be graded accordingly. Of course, when it was started, some candidates took advantage, but as time went on, well, some people are attributing it to because of the embarrassment, having failed and going back. Maybe when you were in school, you were trying to show off, and so if you didn't pass, you didn't feel comfortable going back to write the exam. So it wasn't like there was no opportunity. Yes, there was opportunity, but just that the candidates, many of them did not take advantage of that situation.
Well, I mean, how has that perception never been corrected? Of course, it's very much in the media. Even recently, it just, there's this big headline, remedials at BECE, and everybody's thinking, well, since 1990, we are now being able to write remedials, and it really looks bad on the education fraternity.
No, you see, if you somewhere along the line, we realize that after the exam, some children, because parents are mobile sometimes, especially government officers, so we sort of amended the regulation that where a student or a candidate had moved from the original, from a district to another because of transfers, the candidate was to take a letter from the district, the school and the district, to the new district where the parents will be working, and then register there and then write the exam. So they didn't have to go through any hassle.
With this new system, so then once you're going to resit, you don't do continuous assessment. It's just based on what you...
I am sure they will have to put in their old index numbers. And once you put in if it is captured, then they will be able to retrieve your continuous assessment, therefore use the marks in addition to your rating exam marks. So I don't know, but this is what certainly, because the exam is based on both rating and continuous assessment, they will have to find a way of...
Okay, I read on my graphic online, and the GES is saying that, no, it will be based on 100% marks on your exam, so they're not going to go back and do continuous assessment. I mean, the story goes on further to say you were given opportunity to pass the first time, so if you didn't, just come and write your exams, and hopefully you pass that, and then move on.
So maybe the assumption is that everybody would have passed the continuous assessment. So that...
Anish,
yes, sir.
You know, many years ago, if you wanted to rewrite your common entrance or rewrite your O-level, you didn't need to go back to your school. You know, you just registered at, I think, WAEC, you know, the West African Examination Council there, and then you did your private studies, and at the time you came to write it. I mean, what is it that you had to go back to your school now? And I mean, if you're schooling in Tamale and you lived in Accra and you'd failed and you came to Accra, you had to go back to Tamale to write your exam. I mean, I don't know, what's the logistic?
You know, I mean, these days, I'm glad you called me a passionate educationist, because you are too. So that makes two of us, partners in crime. But guess what? I'll take that crime any day. You know, we need to be a little more flexible. Mm-hmm. In traditional African societies and bureaucracies, flexibility is zero. These days with the ICT, there's no reason why people cannot continue doing whatever it is that they were doing. Let's assume, for example, that someone doesn't pass the BECE this year. He can go on for another 2 or 3 years and still come and pass. Human beings develop at different rates. Our cognitive abilities shift from person to person, from place to place, and so on. But the most important thing is that we want to encourage people to be resilient. You fail one time, it's not a big deal. You know, you fail the second time, it's not a big deal. Bureaucratic processes have to be such that it helps people at any time to do better than what they did the last time. That is the one. So frankly, I mean, talking about the O-levels again, in our time, if you had to, in fact, what they would do is that the O-levels would take you to the A-levels. Now, if you can be accepted to do A-levels, and in the course of time, you have to go and resit in the same school, the O-level where you didn't do well. Let's say you didn't do well in math, especially math and English. You can always go back and do it while you're in the sixth form. There always has to be flexibility. You know, we need to be flexible. My concern really, whenever it comes to education in this country, is that it's too tight. You know, people are boxed in. You can't box a human mind in anything. Otherwise, you lose the essence of education, which in itself is freedom. The other point, too, that I wanted to raise, though, is that the BECE seems to be the only benchmark that we have. It bothers me. You know, the BECE has a purpose. The purpose is that we want to be sure that within a certain demographic group, we know the amount of, we know the number of people who are fitting the English criteria a certain way, math criteria a certain way, so that we have an idea of the caliber of people that we are producing. That's one way to do it. But under no circumstances should we use this BECE as a punitive assessment. A punitive assessment means that, oh, and then 1 year wait, you can't go there. Mm-hmm. It's primitive, it's barbaric. You know, what we need to begin to understand is that the BECE, the way it is now, if you bring some of the greatest game changers in the world, the chances are they might not pass the BECE. What does that mean? We need to be able to test some other kinds of ways in which human beings can move on regardless of the BECE. That is my concern. And these are the issues I write about all the time. The BECE can be used as a formative assessment. That is the caliber of people that we have. But under no circumstances should it be a punitive assessment or a terminal assessment. That's my concern. And what do I mean by that? If you look at, let's say, the Volta region, that there were 0% scores there. If you look at Upper East and Upper West, what does that mean? that means that they are not proficient in the BECE, but they can be proficient in something else. How many people make a living based on BECE? See, these are the bigger questions that we have to begin to understand in this country. So what I'm saying is this: when I look at some of the programs that I've done in the North, the chances are that the quality of the teaching there itself is circumspect. So, but these are able young people who can do something else. And now we have to begin to look at what I call authentic assessment. The BE is one form of assessment, but it should not degrade a human being and relegate them to the back the rest of their lives. It doesn't make sense. Because you gave the statistics. If 500,000 people are not able to pass the BECE and go a certain way, what happens to them? We don't want them to be social deviants. But what is it that these people can do? That is where now we have to begin to rearrange our mindset that BECE should not be the only criteria. An authentic assessment to do this. We begin to look at what young people themselves are interested in doing. I'll give an example. Let's look at someone who failed the BECE, but he weaves kente. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's what they do for a living. That is an authentic assessment. Authenticity means this is where my heart is at. This is where my capabilities are. And I need to be judged and respected based on that, not based on filling out papers, true, false exams, multiple choice and so on. That will fit a certain kind of people. This is what I call the linear type education. You want to go from BECE to senior high school and then go to the university. And I'll tell you this, let's look at a hypothetical situation. If we have 100 young people who started class 1 today, the chances are only 2 will end up in the university. What happens to the 98? We need to begin to think that we cannot continue doing the same things, these old ways, and think that we're going to avoid developing social deviance in the school. This is what we have to do.
Let me bring Michael in here and find out what because I mean, you are the helm of affairs. Kids as young as between 13 and 15 are going to write an exams, and you know lots of them will not continue in life.
Okay, maybe let's go back to history. Before the introduction of this junior secondary schools, which came in with the experimental JSS in 1974, from Jobo's report, the new structure and content of education, everybody was completing standard 7. That meant the terminal, or what everybody was entitled to.
At what age did you finish standard 7? I didn't do standard 7.
Well, I didn't complete standard 7. so I'm coming to that.
I would imagine about 16 or 8 or 17. Because I left from 2.
Not less than 15 anyway. Because
16, 17.
Of course, it should be 16. Okay. You enter 6 years, and there's a 10 year cycle, so 16 minimum. Of course, because people were also jumped.
We came in late. Some people start class 1 at the age of 8.
Well, some people also entered, and within 5 years they are in
there you go.
Standard. Anyway, so from that time, or at that time, the minimum level of education considered a right for every child that entered school was standard 7. But along the line, when secondary schools were open, you could write a common entrance to go to secondary school, either in Form 2, Form 3, or sometimes Form 4. In fact, maybe it wasn't actually very difficult for people to even leave Form 4 to go to secondary school. But then, the main issue was that was the minimum level of education that will enable you to go into the world of work. So if you don't want to go into the world of work after standard 7, you want to continue. So you branch or wrote the common entrance and went to secondary school. Those who completed standard 7 had to go into they were employed as clerks and messengers and so on and so forth. Others, even from there, went on to write the training college exams, and also meaning they didn't terminate their education after middle school, standard 7, but they went on and became teachers and so on. Others went to other schools, agri schools and so on and so forth. Then we decided to reorganize our educational system because it was too much of academic. So we said we want to vocationalize education. The 1974 Jobo Committee or the Education Reform and the 1987 all tried to say to emphasize on vocational education. And with it, especially the 1987, came the issue of the number of years that we spend in school. So we said, if you go to school for 10 years, go to secondary school for 5 years, sixth form, by the time you complete the university, you are an old man or old lady already. So along came with this reduction in the number of years from 12 years to, I think, 9 years. Not 9 years, from 17 years to 12 years. So we sort of reduced it, and that is where the problem that my brother is talking about came in, because then the BECE, or the end of the JSS at that time and JHS now, became the terminal point, and you either terminate or move on. So at the end of the exam, those who want to go to secondary school and do well, then will have to go to secondary. And those who...
But I see, after 2-3 years that we realized we were struggling in moving them along, could we not come back and say, listen, we are terminating these kids too early?
Exactly. It took a long time. And when finally it was realized that, look, there was no way you can say that children at 15, 16 should go into the world of work. It was even against international labor law. You cannot employ anybody who is below 17. But it looks like it took a long time for Ghana to take a decision to say that, no, we need to. And we haven't even arrived at that decision to move the basic education level from JHS to another level, maybe secondary level, where then you will see that this person is matured. Anybody who completes secondary school now will be around 18. And surprisingly, that is the minimum age you will be accepted to enter even any European university. Mm-hmm. You have to be 18. So they've structured the educational system in such a way that by the time you are 18, you have completed A level, and therefore you are matured. Unlike Ghana, years, where you're talking about 16, 15, 17. So this is the difference. So yes, I agree with my brother. Mm-hmm. This person, we are saying he can enter the world of work. How can he or she enter the world of work? And there's no work. And so that's where we have all these, the number of criminals whose ages are between 15, 16, 17, and 18, all from schools that, or are from places where they didn't get access to continue their education to a certain level that will make them productive.
I mean, I don't know if as a state we don't realize the danger in it, because you see, it's like a snowball. The teenage pregnancy is high, and they are unable to look after the offspring. They then fall into the same trap. You have 3-4 generations living, on the road, all because they were denied that opportunity. And I don't know if it's the GES or if it's the state about who takes his pen and say, from henceforth, this cannot be done. I mean, who does that?
GES doesn't make laws or acts. GES implements what the government or the people of Ghana say, this is the way we want to go.
Through the Ministry of Education.
Exactly. So once it comes that, look, we have changed our system from A to B, and then GES will say, okay, how do we arrive at what we are thinking? That is the policy. We think we want to change people.
Can't you say that, look, I'm a professional educationist, and this is a no-go
You see, we've gone through so many of these experiments. I will call them experiments. Mm-hmm. Even after standard 7, you remember we introduced the continuation schools. At that time, it was an attempt to, again, let me use the word, to vocationalize or diversify, that was the word we used, diversify education to include vocational and technical education. So we hurriedly opened continuation schools. We were talking about if this guy is good at making kente, why not? That was where we were to put or convert schools in, say, Onyi and the Kente town, what is it? Borire and those places, so that those schools, that is, if you want to, take to Kente weaving, then the school, and then we will hire the craftsmen to teach these children. Of course, even without hiring them, the children themselves became apprentices to these Kente master craftsmen and became Kente weavers. So in the same way, we should have been looking at the various parts of the country and see what, if you don't have the opportunity, or if you don't want to, we don't have to make it that everybody who completes secondary school or the BECE will want to go to secondary school. And that's another mistake we are making. So if you are along the coast and you want to take to fishing, why can't they be, and we will try to do this as part of the reforms of 1987, where we say we are setting up workshops and so on. You see, these are all paperwork.
So there's a point I wanted to add to this. Exactly, I'm going to take off from where you landed. Ghana is a huge country, 92,000 square miles, and modern times you talk about 280,000 square kilometers. There was a time, I think 2 years ago, where they said there was not enough space for young people to do practicals. A country as big as ours, with 10 regions, about 200 districts. So the issue is this. Again, when we talk about authentic assessment, and we need to pay attention to this, that not everybody has a learning curve that goes from class 1 to university. Most people don't fit that. So let's be realistic. So again, what I keep saying is this. We have to begin to look at education in a functional way that fits every district. All districts are not endowed the same way. What my brother was saying, that for example, and let's look at the Ghana syllabus itself. It lends itself to even economic interpretation. And by that, what I mean is this. Look at the riverbanks, schools that are bordered on riverbanks. Why can't we do part of the science curriculum? So we can do fisheries there. So someone who's not that keen on BECE, part of the science structure itself directs him to do something that's productive, that's measurable through what we call the authentic assessment. This is what I want to do. And it's got a scientific basis to it, so that this person is being qualified by any stretch of imagination, that not only are they cognitively aware of their own limitations, but they have what we call the affective intelligence. Affective intelligence means that I'm curious about this that I want to do. I will develop my leadership abilities there. I will persevere. At the end of the day, it has to be something that has economic value for me. Now, that is along the riverbanks. Now, let's look at some of the projects I've done in the north, Mampus area, and I think I've said it before, where there's cotton blowing everywhere. But we have people sitting in classrooms, filling out forms, and doing subject-verb agreements and the rest of it. That is a part of education. But on the other hand, we need to harness that in that particular region, because it can always have a scientific element as far as producing textiles out of the cotton there. And so it cannot be packaged as part of the syllabus, so that we are not deviating from the syllabus, but we are putting common sense to the syllabus in terms of what is usable, what is skillful, and what our young people can do, so that they don't have to leave the north to come to Accra and Kumasi to do Kayeye. These are big issues, huh? And I've seen them where they are even trying the best that they can with low machinery to do that. But now we have to begin to look at it in a huge way, that bring in the right machinery, so that, and I keep saying this many times, we have 5 school days in the course of a week. And this is what I'm telling the nation now. I wrote about it last week and the week before that. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday should go towards lectures and theories. But Thursdays and Fridays, every kid in this country should be learning some kind of trade. The linear approach from class 1 to university, it doesn't work for everybody. It probably works for only 2% of the people. So what happens to the 98% of the people? And we are now ordering everything that we can produce in this country, because we have not incorporated that in our curriculum. We have to do that. And even those who are cognitively inclined, those who want to do the subject verb agreements. There was a project that I did on the outskirts of Accra, where I was, training the teachers, going from classroom to classroom, teaching subject agreements, grammar, and that sort of thing. And then the kids came to me and they said, today, what are we going to do? This elementary school, P4 or P5. And then I looked at them, there was a lot of enthusiasm, and under no circumstances can I tell them, today we are going to learn grammar. What kind of dumb thought would that be? So what I told them, guess what? We got to write our own books and publish them. He said, now that's functional. Okay? Now, of course, in a class of 30, not everybody can write a story, but I say everybody should try and write a story. And so that your grandmother has told you, your father has told you. I'm trying to bring you the practical aspects of the curriculum to how we can raise standards in this country. In the end, a few kids were able to write the stories. So the next day, guess what? We got them to present their stories to the rest of the class. Now, guess what was happening? We're developing enthusiasm. Now, those who've never written stories before now want to do it. But guess what? Eventually, we're able to use, from the English class, we went to the computer room, we typed this out, we went to the labs, where they were learning drawings and that sort of thing, where they drew scenes to fit the illustrations in the story. At the end of the day, you won't believe it, we published an anthology of short stories written by primary school children. Now, while they were in primary school, guess what? Alongside Chinua Achebe and the rest of them, their books too were being taught. So now what were we doing? We were raising a caliber of writers and readers. The practical elements have to be incorporated into the system. So now we are not ordering books from China or Korea or India or anywhere else. The children are producing their own work. Now that is the mentality.
Enjoy to see your book being read in class.
That is the mentality that
I'm going to take a break here. When I come back, I want to find out, is there any way we can, all those who have already missed the boat, and there's lots, millions of them, is there any way we can get them back and train them and make them more useful rather than just peddle shoelaces and PK and mint and sugarcane and pawpaw? Is there any formula of getting them back trained and making better economic use of them? Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying, and we are talking the important subject of education, and we are looking at BECE, clearing the confusion with regards to remedials. But before the break, I just wanted to find out that so many of our children, nieces and nephews have missed the boat because of lack of opportunity. So I'm just trying to find out, is there any way we could get them to back into school, retrain, and make something else? So somebody who's just peddling sugarcane, somebody who's just selling mint, and we see them all the time, dusters for cleaning cars. And let me come to you, Mr. Michael. So, is there any way that we could have a system so that we could get them back and train them and just make better citizens out of them?
Exactly, because even if you want to be a carpenter or some of these trade that we don't sort of put a lot of premium on, you need to be sure that this kind of job is scientifically based, by which I mean you have to be a carpenter. You need a little bit of mathematics. You need a little bit of communication.
Some world standards.
Exactly. So that you can, and therefore the need for what we call continuing education is something that we need to promote. You've missed the boat, yes, to go to the university, but if you make furniture and it is very well done, yes, you get the market, because they look at the product and you see that the finishing is perfect because you put in a lot of calculations and and then because of your enlightenment, you appreciate good things, and therefore your product will sell, and that will make you useful to yourself and to the society. And therefore the continuing education, where if you miss the boat, yes, in the olden days, even our fathers who did not go to school because they wanted to know the number of cocoa bags that they have sold, went to night school so that they can record The very important is to be able to, so that you are not cheated, because you have no idea how much you were paid for a bag of cocoa, multiplied by the number of cocoa bags that you sold to the cocoa cratchy, as we say. But if you don't have that, then of course you continue to be exploited.
You see, again, talking about getting back into school, the last remedials, and we have 1,082 candidates, registering. The whole country has got 11 centers. And I'm saying between, I think, 2009, 10, and 11, I think the number was about 574,688 couldn't make the grades. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
So if 1,200, go back to try their luck again, that is not even a drop in the ocean. It'll probably evaporate before it drops.
You see, before I left office, we did a survey because we wanted this continuous sort of education to be able to assist. We always use the dropout or people who couldn't pass. And we came up with about 140 privately owned institutions in vocational institutes, vocational across the country. 140, that was a huge number, because in those days, the number of secondary schools was around 250 something. So and the idea was that if we can support these people, either administratively or with some managerial support, so that those children who do not go to secondary school and want to learn some trade are supported. And that's why we were trying to introduce compulsorily all those schools should be able to teach English and maths, and not calculus and so on, because they don't need those things for anything. They need so that they can be functional. Mathematics that is functional for them to be able to help in their work, and English that will be they will be able to put a little report on what they've done. If we are able to do that, maybe 1 year or 2 years, even the so-called apprentices in the magazines, as we call them, magazines, the fitters, they need a little bit of enlightenment in English and mathematics, they want to cut a part to fit into they need a little bit of calculation and to be able to do that. Because if they don't do that, you go to the magazine, even they want to do your breaks, and all you hear is tiaso, unite, tiaso, try and error. And that is because the world is
moving on.
Yeah, moving up. And you cannot continue to do try and error. So yes, if we want to bring these people, we must make sure that the little functional knowledge that will make them compete within the local market, and possibly it's important that we do that. But if you are talking about 1,181 candidates registering,
we're not doing well in getting them back.
No, so that is maybe in addition to this, we need also to look at how we can support these private schools, vocational schools, technical, to be able to support these children, so that when they pass out, it's not like they
standing back. I see Ghana treating education as, we just have to do it, so let's just provide it so that they go it. Rather than that, this is our only and last chance. If ever we are going to make it, as a nation, nothing at all will make it other than education. However, I just see it as, enrollments. Let's just increase the enrollments. Let's then get them out. Let's see. That's how I see it standing from
And
far.
You are right, perfectly right. Because if you look at the history of education in Ghana, and you compare to other countries, do comparative education studies in many countries, in almost all the developing countries, their main focus is on enrollment. When they talk about quality, they are only joking. They are talking quality in terms of, you'll be able to put everybody in school, so what? At the end of it, the product, when they come out, are not functional. And that has, there are a lot of studies there which we can refer to, and it is very sad because maybe this time we are told the National Development Planning Commission is going to have a document that everybody can follow. If we don't do that, and we start an educational reform, or we come up with educational reform and say that this is the way we want to go. I mean, we've been hearing about vocationalizing education, diversifying education. We use all the terms, but we are getting nowhere because we start 2 years, 3 years, then something comes out and we move.
And I think it's a very sad story because the average Ghanaian, I think, is very sharp. The average Ghanaian is very, very sharp.
That is where my commitment comes from. Because
but just to be denied the opportunity, and as a state, we also don't realize that,
Let me just chip in this. As long as we continue to centralize everything, I said this the other day when I was with my brother, we will not get anywhere. Why must everything come from Accra? Even when they're doing procurement, centralized procurement before it is distributed. By the time it gets to the remote village, nothing gets there. So if everything is being done within the district, within the region, you see, let's talk about ghost teachers and so on. If the payroll is controlled, even let's use the region. So if a new name pops up in Ashanti region or Central region, it is easy for them to trace and go there and find out what is happening. Last month, the number of teachers in this school was 12. How can we have 15? Where are they coming from? But where they have to send the input from the schools to the district, from the district to the region, from the region to Accra,
it's lost in the system.
Certainly we will not get anywhere. Or where the cake is shared, national cake is shared, and the district has, say, only 5,000. They will decide what to do in order to help them, rather than somebody deciding that, okay, we are going to distribute this bottle to each district. Who says every district needs this bottle or this equipment? That is what I'm looking at.
And the sad part is that the very basic schools that the government will supply, no official will send their children there. I think that's a big alarm bell for us.
Now, that is not an alarm, it's hypocrisy. When if it's an alarm, we'll set it some way. That's a mindset that it breaks my heart that those who are in positions to make a difference in this country are not, look at the payroll. Where does the money go? You look at payroll as far as the Ministry of Education and that sort of thing. We have people with fantastic degrees, fantastic titles, but are they up and doing? That is a question. Now, there's something, again, along the lines of what you said. When we begin to decentralize, one of the most beautiful things that we can do in this country. And not only are we decentralizing, this is what I'm saying. Every school district should be in a position to have a say in what it is that is needed in that district. And invariably, it works on projects. Let me repeat this, because I've done this before in a GATE program in the US. From class 1, every child has a project. A project that's related to an input that is significant in the area that you are. What they say that the streets are paved with gold. It's up to you to find what is in the area and focus on that. Now, what projects do? Okay, what projects do? The one project is the one that I was telling you about as far as elementary school children producing their own books. That's a sense of purpose. That one. If people don't, let me be honest with you, there are a lot of people who are sitting behind desks right now, supposed to be schooled. They have no sense of purpose. They don't know why they are there because they are being told that, oh, study this because you're going to need it in the future. These days, the future is so volatile. The future will change tomorrow. So that whatever you are saying today, it might be relevant. But when it comes to projects, you learn a lot from it because the thing is this, it's based on your own curiosity. It's based on your own interests and so on. So the point I was making about the North is that how come we want to spend money to import sanitary towels for women or for schoolgirls? And schoolgirls themselves can produce the stuff with the cotton in the North. Now that's a sense of purpose. And not only that, it has economic value and a social value. If you look at Ghana is one of the richest countries in the world. except that the mindset to develop it is poor. But the most important thing is that now, the other question, why do schools have to sit in dust as we speak? When Ghana became independent, I was 10 years old. The school that I was in at that time, under the colonial system, was not sitting in dust. But how come it's sitting in dust now? So, and then the other thing too is that we want too many qualified people to be teaching because they've done research here, they've done research there, but go to the site where they are teaching and see if there's some basic research that's been applied there. And the question that I'm talking about tertiary education now, and you know, I don't know if I told you this before, but there was a time when I was in a bookstore, I wanted to use the toilet in one of our major universities. The stench had smeared the whole area. You couldn't go in there, but because there was no water, I came out in the hallway in the walkway. There was a water chamber that was broken, and water was gushing everywhere. You know, across the road you have how do you call it? A Department of Applied Sciences. If you can apply the water to flush your toilet, what kind of research are we talking about? So the other thing that I'm also saying across the board is that who should our children emulate? Invariably, they will emulate people who are progressive, who are getting things done. They could give a hoot if the person has a PhD or a master's degree. But they are doing something that is visible to them, that makes sense, something that they have to emulate. So the question is, who is going to teach our young people? These are the things that we want to begin to look at. So what I keep saying is this, even at the university level, we have to, there has to be a place for the PhDs and those who are doing the research and so on. But that should be 50% of the faculty. The other 50% are people who are visibly committed to something that they are doing. Because at the end of the day, they are the movers and the shakers. You know, we are moving away from reality. Everything that is perfect is on paper, but implementation is zero. People who are hands-on, who are getting things done, are the practitioners, are the implementers. These are the people that we want our young people to emulate, in addition to somebody else, everybody else. But I'll still say this. Every kid, schools now, every school should be working on a project, at least to improve the school site.
Could it be because maybe parents are not demanding? All the parents will demand is that I just want my child to have a place in that school, rather than, look, I want my child to come out better than I put him in. You know, I rarely see parents in armbands saying that, listen, my child went to that school and the product that came out I'm not happy with. It's always, oh, I didn't get a place, I just need a place. So we are all obsessed in just enrollment rather than...
But parents can see quality when they see it. I mean, out of the discussion, it's here we are trying to mold the minds of people too, in terms of what should be suitable for their own children. But I'll tell you, no parent wants a child to go and pick up a degree in university and then come home and be a problem for them. These are the issues now. Some of the same parents are complaining that, my goodness, after all that economic and social investment, my child is at home and that sort of thing. So the important thing is that every parent, I have children too, every parent wants at the end of the day that the amount of investment that we are making in our children has to turn into something that is productive. I don't know one parent who would not be interested in that. But then the schools themselves have to be functional, such that, again, the sense of purpose, that is key. If your child comes to you and says, today, this is a project that I'm doing and I need your help, I don't know any parent who cannot help them. But if the homework is this thing that you want to fill in today and fill out tomorrow, all the way to the university level where you go to a lecture today, you come back and you go to the same lecture, those days are gone. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday should be for the lectures and this paperwork and stuff across the board. And those are the policies that have to be put in place. Parents will know that Thursdays and Fridays, their children are not going to be copying things anymore. There's something that they are doing. And then schools should take it upon themselves. Again, I don't want to be here talking to the schools in terms of what it is that they have to do. They have to decide themselves, as the faculty have to sit and decide for themselves. What does our school need? What are the practical things that our students need? So that we devote Thursdays and Fridays to that. Those are the issues that have to be made at the school site for every school. Those are the issues.
You see, the real people who could, the movers and shakers, can afford to take their children where they will move and shake things. The majority who can't do it, can't afford to take their children there. So it's like those who can have made it are okay. and we are still depending on those who are okay to sort of cry for those who are not okay.
I think it boils down to the fact, where are these people who are okay? They are in the big cities. The majority of the people are in the rural areas. Now, somewhere in 2000, we tried to say that, look, let's bring the quality education that we've been trumpeting almost on every platform. Everybody is talking about quality education. When somebody is donating, they say, oh, to improve quality of education. When he's donating a computer, oh, to improve quality education. Anything they are doing in school, even if they want to give water, they say they want to improve quality education. What is this quality education? So we try to evolve a scheme where, and that was one of the reasons why people were refusing to accept posts, especially doctors, teachers, and so on, to rural areas. Yes, there's a clinic, but because the lives of the people are, because the schools there are not attractive. So we said, let us have a model school, not model in the sense of big things in but a school that will serve as an example for the other, and then the school will be used as a center for facilitating the training of the on-the-job training for teachers. So we started setting up schools, and I'm proud to say that one of the schools that was identified, where I worked as a district director for only 15 months anyway, was in Kranza. I was a district director for Kranza for 15 months, and the St. Teresa's model school that we set up. Every doctor, and even people around, were prepared to bring their children because their results were comparable to schools in Accra. So why would I want to stay in Accra? Because if I have water, electricity, and a good school for my child, every doctors willingly accepted posting, and by replicating this, so we remove the congestion at the center in Accra. To the that's why it is important that we. I always quote this from Julius Nyerere when he introduces Ujamaa concept, doing it yourself, or self-reliance. But he was facing frustration. Now, it's just like the decentralization we're trying to do since 1988. How many? About 27 years, 28 years. Where are we, if you ask anybody, where are we? We haven't descended even 10%. So when he got fed up, said, it's 10 years. After only 10 years, he was so frustrated, he says, it's 10 years since we started Ujamaa. We have not reached our goal, and it is not even in sight. And we can say the same for the decentralization in Ghana. 27 years. We haven't reached our goal, and there's no way you can say that it is in sight.
What's the big fear?
The big fear, I don't know what is the big fear. Why you think some of us worked in the rural areas for a long time before we landed in Accra. And we were happy, things were moving, our students were comparable to people everywhere. So what is the big fear? That is the question. Why is it that, meanwhile, all of us have come from all those places, and we think once we land in Accra, we cannot do anything to improve the situation? Why? Especially if you cannot even get medical, because some of the things that you show on your television, where a clinic doesn't have even the basic things. I mean, it's sad. And who want to work under such conditions? Nobody would do that.
I mean, Alice.
Yes, sir.
Let me finish with you. But what would be a turning point where, as a state, we put a lot of our eggs in the educational basket, because it would sort of streamline so many things for us. You get people who grow up and not too corrupt and not give birth all over the place, and the economy, GDP, I'm sure, would even go up.
Yes.
So what should we do?
Well, we always talk about leadership. Human beings need to be inspired.
Yeah.
Do you see any inspiration here in Ghana now? I mean, people need to be inspired all the time. I mean, when I was growing up after independence, I was very inspired. I was in my khaki shirt and khaki pants, and I was going to school. I would walk from Krofrom all the way to St. Peter's and walk back. When I was in the village, the same thing. We were inspired. There was something that we were trying to achieve. There's no inspiration now. You know, that really bothers me. But it's not impossible because the young people are ready. And I keep saying this, a time has come where we have to be promoting education in this country. You know, and I keep saying this, when the politics begin, you'll be surprised the number of billboards that are going to be planted from Accra all the way to the Upper East and Upper West. That capability is there. So why can't we do the same thing to promote smiles education? You know, it has to show that at least, it has to show that this is the direction that the country is going. There has to be these TV programs, there have to be the radio programs, there have to be the support systems, there have to be the, how do you call it, the billboards everywhere. That education is the thing. And improvement came when the Nkrumah was there, you know, there was mass education. And there were trucks, I think they were painted blue, that were going from village to village with a little blackboard in the back. That was teaching them how to do the basic. Back on the back, and they show them exactly how to write these things. You know, that is gone. You know, but then what breaks my heart is that nobody should tell anybody, but there's no money. There's money, but what's the money being used for?
Well, unfortunately, that's all time will allow me.
These are the issues for this country. The education is important. The human capital is what's going to drive this country. Let me make my last point. If you look at Finland, and the mind went into producing a product called Nokia, that fetched more money than all the timber and gold that we are destroying the landscape with. Human capital. These are the things that we have to do.
The grey matter. You see, at the beginning of the show, I said I wish my producer would find me a slot so we continue this occasion. You see, because I wanted actually to move on to this get-rich-quick attitude, which has seemed to have engulfed the whole nation, that somebody at 25 feels that I need to own a car and build a house. You know, where at that time you should be, you know, renting your room and, you know, building up your capital and maybe, you know, at 50 build your house, as is done in even, you know, developed countries. And I hope we continue this education. I would say thank you very much to Michael Nsoa, who is a former DG of GES, Director General of Ghana Education Service, and my brother, senior brother, Anis Hafa, a passionate educationist, I told you, and you can see the passion coming out of there. But I promise you, we will continue this education. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.